Hey, welcome to More About Alcoholism. All right. Page 30. More about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit that we were real alcoholics. Nobody likes to think he's bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it's not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized, described, by countless vain attempts, unsuccessful, to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow someday he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Real, actually existing as a thing or occurring in fact, not imagined, genuine, complete, used to emphasize the significance or seriousness of a situation. Okay. The obsession that somehow, someday, at some point in the future time, not right now. Someday I was gonna quit drinking. Someday I would find that magical formula where I could have, maybe just one glass of wine and one glass of beer or two shots of whatever, or I wanted to find a magical formula where I could actually control and enjoy it at the same time. There were times I could control my drinking, alcoholism, my drinking, but I didn't enjoy it. And then there were times that I couldn't control it, and I seemed to enjoy that more. And I think the reason why is because I was able to escape from myself, which is what my whole game plan was, just to get away from myself for a minute. There is no escape. There's only one way out. There's only one way I can escape myself. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. Okay, wait, there's two ways. I can escape myself by making myself mentally insane, or death. That's it. And I did successfully drink a lot of my brain cells away, and that's not something that I'm proud of. I'm not bragging about it. I think I just didn't know how to cope with my trauma, so that was my only solution I had at the time. Illusion. A deceptive appearance or impression of reality, a false or misleading perception or belief, or distortion of sensory input, wrongly perceived or interpreted by the senses. Yeah, I'd say alcoholism is definitely an illusion and a delusion, a curse, whatever you want to call it. We learned that we had to fully concede, surrender to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion, lie, that we are like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed, completely shattered. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. It almost looks like there's not only an obsession for control for alcohol, but an obsession to control a lot of other things in life. So they used to say, the old timers used to say, when we stop drinking alcohol, we start drinking people. We wanted some kind of control. It couldn't be a control over alcohol, or we couldn't control ourselves. We want to control someone else. Ah, inevitably, invariably, unavoidably followed by still less control. So the moment I'm trying to control, I become out of control. So anytime I'm trying to control something, I'm out of control. Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Uh, uh, Pitiful. Sad. What is demoralization? I didn't even look that up. Okay, so I was willing to go to just about almost any length for my next drink. Everything went out the window, you know. We could say, "Oh, I'm a good person. I don't lie, I don't cheat, and I don't steal." But maybe when an alcoholic gets sober, they don't lie, cheat, and steal. But when they're drinking, they most definitely do lie, cheat, and steal. Because if you're a real alcoholic, you're willing to go to any length for your next drink or drug. Just like when you're in recovery, you're willing to go to any length to stay sober one day at a time. It's the complete opposite. So I think that's what that means for me. I know there's other better explanations for it in the hall, but this is my personal experience. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. So with age, as our body ages, it's not gonna be able to break down alcohol or any substance the same way that it used to, including foods. We know it won't break down foods the same way, but we want to think that, we can continue drinking for the rest of our lives. And, maybe some people can, but some people can't, because this is talking about a certain particular type. Okay. There's different types of alcoholics. So this is a type of alcoholic that they're talking about. There's different types. There's the real alcoholic, the helpless and hopeless alcoholic that has no reason for living type of alcoholic. I started drinking. When I started drinking, really, really drinking, I was about 20, 20, I was about 21 or 22. I was drinking like a case of beer a day. And, sometimes I drink mixed drinks. That's what I had to do to function in the world because, and I didn't know why I drank. I didn't know there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no, I wasn't aware of any free counseling services. I never heard the word therapy, counseling. I never heard the word AA. I never heard the word alcoholic. I never heard the word trauma. Okay. None of that stuff. So, we just did what we had to do to make it through back in the day. We're like men who have lost their legs and never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some cases, there has been brief recovery followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. There is some neuroplasticity in your brain, but all your brain cells won't grow back. All my brain cells aren't going to grow back. I really damaged myself in trying to run from my pain and trauma that I didn't know what to do with. We tried all the cures. Let's see, I tried, let's see, back then it was exercise, uh, vitamins, you know, uh, there just wasn't a lot of other solutions. Moving to another place, self-isolating, so nobody would be around to trigger me. Uh, I moved way out to the country with my grandma. Um, well, there's a lot of other things now that other ways to run away from yourself besides alcohol. You know, there's really hard drugs that'll take you all the way from yourself. But let me tell you what, you can't run away from yourself. The only escape is death or brain dead, and both of them are not real solutions. Science may one day accomplish this. Okay, so there's the whole debate between nature versus nurture. Were we born with it, or was it due to our trauma? What happened? We became alcoholics because we drank too much. All of it. Okay, there is no one answer. Yes, there's an alcoholic gene, and yes, you can become alcoholic without having the gene, and yes, it all contributes. I think for me, the biggest thing that contributes to my disease is lack of effort. When I don't want to do anything and I just want everything to magically happen without any effort, you know, I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to go to meetings. I don't want to read my book. I don't want to. So, you don't have to do anything. No one's going to force me. Look, no one's going to force me to work a program of recovery. No one forced me to drink. No one's going to force me to work a program of recovery. It's something that we have to be willing to do ourselves. The fact that I know there are people that do not want me to be clean and sober helps me, as that rebel spirit in me says, okay, well, if they don't want me to be sober, now I'm going to try even harder. You can't turn a pickle back into a cucumber. Uh, okay. Despite all we can say, it doesn't matter how many words you got, how many ways I can explain it to you. Many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they're in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who's showing the inability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Let's break it down. Every form of delusion, self-delusion, and test, they're, they're going to try to prove that they're special. You know, my first sponsor said I suffered from a terminal uniqueness. I thought my case was different. My pain was worse. The things I'd been through were harder than what other people went through, and nobody could possibly understand me. So why even try? And I was gonna succeed where everyone else failed. I'll prove to you. I'll show you. That's the ego and the pride. There's a desperate experiment on page 35. So you're gonna prove to you that they are not alcoholic. Okay. Uh, so on the page top of page 35, it talks about what sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink. So it's almost like let me see, I actually went out drinking one time because of this. Am I really an alcoholic or not? Am I really, because I didn't really know what an alcoholic was. Am I one? Let me see. Can I drink a half a glass of wine? Can I take 2 sips of champagne? I tried all that stuff and I wasted my life because once I picked up that first drink, I didn't know when I was going to be back. And the experiment of trying to see if I was an alcoholic or not. If I wasn't, I would have became one, trying to prove and try to find out if I was. I would have been better off just to say it doesn't really matter if I am one or not. I don't want to become one. So let me not even test that. But a real alcoholic won't do that. We don't know when to leave well enough alone. We have a rebel spirit. Hmm. So if someone's showing an inability to control his drinking and they want to, go ahead and try more control, we're not going to try to stop them because, you know, we don't know. I know for myself, I know people that claim to have been an alcoholic, never went to AA, went to church, stayed sober for the rest of their life. And then they just go to church whenever they want. Some people can do that, or and I don't even know what their motivation was. I know people that have been to AA and were convinced they were an alcoholic, went back out, and never came back. Uh, some people just can, I guess. But a real alcoholic won't be able to do that. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, treatment. accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. We could increase the list ad infinitum, forever. Those are just some of the methods that the first 100 people had of trying to prove to themselves if they could or if they could not drink like other people. I can relate to most of these. And most of them. We do not like to, let's see, the DSM, a maladaptive pattern of substance abuse leading to clinically significant impairment or distress. That is the the mental health test for alcoholism. There's a mental health test now. You can go take a test. They'll tell you if you're an alcoholic. You don't have to keep drinking and try to figure it out. We do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic in this book. So the book can't pronounce you an alcoholic, but a doctor can, a mental health, mental health counselor can. They can tell you if you're alcoholic or not. You don't have to go through hell. You don't have to go there anymore. You don't have to do you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to drink yourself to death anymore. You don't have to. You don't got to do anything. If you want to live and you're an alcoholic, the only thing we got to do if we want to live and we're an alcoholic is to not pick up the first drink. That's it. And be willing to go to therapy, treatment, whatever you got to do to not drink. What we got to do. I got to do whatever I got to do to not pick up the first drink. I got to do my recovery. That's what I got to do. We do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. God forbid. Please don't do this. I did this and I was drunk for another. You don't know when you'll be able to stop. But if you're currently drinking a lot, maybe you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly, suddenly. Try it more than once. It will not take long for you to decide if you're honest with yourself about it. It may be worth a bad case of jitters if you get a full knowledge of your condition. This is the test to see if you're alcoholic that they had in 1939. We got better tests today. Look. But if you're currently drinking and you want to know if you're really an alcoholic or not, if you're really an alcoholic, it's going to be hard for you to determine because if you're a real alcoholic, you're already in a delusion and denial about it. So it's hard to break that denial. It takes time, certain length of sobriety for each individual before, and maybe if they ever can, get a moment of clarity in their brain to finally say, "Oh my God, yes." I'm so glad I quit drinking, but you don't really want to. I didn't really want to, but I did, and I'm glad I did now, you know. But when it says that to quit drinking abruptly, they mean drink a half a glass at the bar and leave it there and walk out, or don't walk out. Drink a half a glass and sit there and don't drink anymore. Think about it. How bad do you want that other half? Hmm? How long can you sit there before you drink that other half? I couldn't do it. Oh, yeah, I can't do it. A real alcoholic can't do that. Try it more than once. Okay? Go try it somewhere else. Take one shot and leave. Don't come back for weeks. Pain's a great motivator, man. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking. Most of us. I wouldn't be one of those. Not me. I wouldn't have been able to. I already know now. I used to believe that, but I don't now. But the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. Because you're young and you think, oh, I want to party and I want to have fun. There'll be time to be a boring, uh, square or stuck up person later, you know? And there's never time because once you cross from, where I crossed from where I was young, and then suddenly I woke up and I was old. Shit. And I went from a young drunk to an old drunk. In between that, in between that time, I made no progress. We have heard a few instances where people who showed definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for a long period because of an overpowering desire to do so. Here's one. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. That spree drinking means that you have no restraints, okay? He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts. A bout is a short time, and he quieted himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw that he would get nowhere if he drank at all. Once he started, he had no control whatever. Well, look, he had that figured out. He got that part figured out. He knew if he drank one that he wasn't going to be able to succeed in life. So he knew not to pick up the first one, right? But he had no recovery community or none of the steps. So uh, he made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and retired, he would not touch another drop. There's the challenge. Okay, so he challenged himself, said, until I retire, I'm not going to drink. But when I retire, when I get a certain amount of money after this and that, there's a lot of us have that kind of thinking. I want to, after I got my house cleaned and got the groceries and paid the bills, then I could relax and go out for the weekend, go out for the weekend and destroy my health and get drunk and stupid, make mistakes, and be sorry later. Man, an exceptional man, uncommon and unusual. He remained bone dry for 25 years, retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. That's wonderful. Then he fell victim to a belief which practically every alcoholic has that his long period of sobriety and self discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. I want to go back because I want to say a dry drunk is someone who is, what it says bone dry here. A dry drunk is when I'm not depending on God. So the spiritual concept or spirit, whatever, I don't have any spiritual program. I'm just like doing it on my own without any spiritual help. That's what a dry drunk is, in my opinion. And I did that. I got a long period of sobriety, and I thought that I could just have, the first time I got 3 years, and it was my dad's birthday. We found out he wasn't going to live very long. He had a few months to live, and he was living with me. And my neighbor threw him a birthday party, and I said I can't drink. She says, well, you can't even have one sip, and I didn't know. I didn't know. Can I have one sip? And so I tried it, and then I was drunk for 9 months, I think, 9 or 10 months. And then I remembered, after I started suffering with hangovers, I remembered I was an alcoholic. And then I, went back to my recovery program. And then I stayed sober for like another 7 years. And, I thought I could handle it again. You think, now that you got, I thought now I have quite a bit of sobriety, I can probably, you know, control it, and I was able to control it for a while. I had one or maybe two drinks a day for years. Well, not that time, but later, like so. But that time, that time, uh, after about 13 years of sobriety, 13 years of sobriety minus that one 9-month relapse, and I did have another slip that lasted a couple weeks. I relapsed for 10 years. 10 years. And coming back and getting sober again was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Just that. Like crawling out of hell. So his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. Out came his carpet slippers and a bottle. In 2 months he was in a hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He was confused and ashamed. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital meantime, and he wasn't successful. Then, gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether and found he could not. All of his mental force, I looked it up, means mental or moral strength or power. His moral power, and his mental power. And alcoholics have the strongest willpower of any people that I know. Alcoholics and addicts do. And we want to do the right thing and we want to be good. And it's impossible without it's impossible without help. It's impossible without God. It's impossible without sobriety. There's no way. Just no way. For me, every means of solving his problem which money could buy was at his disposal. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years. So here's a guy that was sober most of his life and died in 4 years. It's almost like he's trying to make up for lost time. All those years that he forced himself not to drink, that he told himself someday he would. That's the problem. There is no someday we will. There is none of that. It's like I'm not drinking today. And when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to make that same decision. Every time I wake up, I'm going to decide I'm just not going to drink today. And that's how we stay sober one day at a time. 4 years. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. But here's a man who at 55 years found he was just where he left off at 30. We've seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Can't turn a pickle back into. Missing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in a short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. There can be no doubts, no hidden beliefs that we will be totally or partially resistant, protected, or exempt. Then I got yet. You're eligible to. So maybe if you're not an alcoholic, you're not an alcoholic yet. Maybe it's not causing you problems yet. But you're eligible too. If I kept doing what I kept doing, I was going to keep getting what I kept getting. And no one could beat my ass better than I could. They tried. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it because none will really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. The peculiar mental twist is this mental obsession of thinking that we are somehow special or different or unique than other people and that we will be able to succeed where they fail. That's this peculiar mental twist already acquired. It's more than that, but several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, had been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking 20 years. I'm going to tell you, in about 2 or 3 years, uh, when I went from, I was controlling it for like 2 years, I would have like one or two a day. And then I started leaving my place, started leaving my house and going out with, and drinking. And I thought I could still do that. And I ended up, it was like two and a half. I went from a fairly healthy person down to, like 99 pounds, and all my hair fell out, and I had so many health issues. And they didn't think I was going to make it. I lost all my muscle mass. I had to rebuild my entire body from scratch. You know, I didn't look like the person that I was at all. Because when you get sober and you look back on those pictures of the past, it's like, wow, how did I even live through that? Several of our crowd, okay. Okay, to be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time, nor take the quantities some of us have. This is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. I wonder why that is. If a woman's body breaks alcohol down, it's harder on us because our bodies are weaker, or, if we drink more because we're emotional creatures, or what, really does. I guess all that poison, literal poison. I mean, because it's poison. If it's not poison when you're drinking it, because it is, I mean, unless you drink alcohol from not in the United States, it might not have arsenic and Roundup pesticide glyphosate in it. But I mean, even if it doesn't, it's still going to break down into your body as poison. So I mean, you can only drink so much poison before you die. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. Wow. Certain drinkers. Okay, so if you think that you might be an alcoholic, maybe you're a certain drinker, and you don't know and you can't stop, there's a test here. It says something like if you can stop drinking for a year, but most people will be drunk within, a week or two of trying that one. So then I know someone who quit, who said they didn't want to be an addict, so they quit smoking pot for a year. And so then they could just smoke all the pot they wanted now. They're still smoking it 40 years later. Oh. We who are familiar with the symptoms see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try to get them to see it. 30-year-old alcoholic versus a 50-year-old alcoholic who's been drinking 20 years. Oh, okay. So a potential alcoholic is a younger person. Usually, but not always. I know someone who wasn't, they didn't really drink until like, if there's some like trauma, somebody dies, and you want to escape the mental emotional pain of that, and then they start drinking, and when they want to stop, they find out they can't. But before that, they were able to be casual drinkers. So then the amount that they took finally triggered the allergy in their body, and now you can never go back again once that's triggered. Okay. Oh my goodness, it's been 40 minutes. I think I'm going to stop. Uh, One more page. As we look back, we feel we've gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our willpower. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. There you go. If he's a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant chance of success, very little chance. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remain sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. So see, we could do that. We quit drinking early on, like when I was 20s. I could quit drinking for a year or two. Maybe even in my 30s, I could quit drinking for a year or two. But in my 40s, no way. Like, okay, though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. You're eligible too. Where I need to have that. Yet means you're eligible too. No one is special or unique. We're all human beings. And we're all human beings. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. So we can't stay dry for a year without God, without our fellow recovering people, church, material therapy, whatever kind of program you work. You have to do something. If you do nothing, you get nothing. You have to do something to get something. So if you're dry, you can't stay, sober anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, their promises. Most of them within a few weeks. That's a real alcoholic. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. Okay, so the people who want to stop completely, to people who want to completely stop drinking, because once you start, you can't stop. That's who they're talking to now. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. So some people can stop without a program or spirituality or anything, church or anything. And that's going to depend on the extent to which his willpower, his or her willpower has already been demolished, diminished. Nothing will kill your willpower like alcohol. Most of us felt we had plenty of character. Okay, we got moral strength. We're mentally intelligent. We had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever. We had a real desire to stop, but we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. It's utter inability to leave it alone. Baffling means we cannot understand it. Even though you can't understand it, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't want to pursue knowledge on the subject to know what you're dealing with. Okay? But we can't understand, instead of trying to figure out why you can't quit drinking or why you become an alcoholic, or was it because you're born that way, or who cares? The solution is still the same. It doesn't matter. The solution's still the same. The problem's the same. The solution's the same. Don't try to figure it out. Just do the next right thing that you know you're supposed to do, and you'll be fine. But if you're going to sit there and try to figure it out, you'll be stuck in a circle, squirrel caging. Utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or wish. How then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? I'm going to stop there, and we'll talk about that next time. God bless you.